All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Good Life, where we dive into the fundamental building blocks for what makes up a truly good life. Today, we're going to dive into a component of business and creating wealth, which is sales. So I have a special guest for you today. We're going to talk about so many different things about how do you close the sale? How do you set up the sale? And Katherine Minett, who is a special guest today. She is a coach, a trainer. She was spent 30 years in corporate America, selling face to face. And now she works with high driving, high performing women, business owners, and helps them really level up their sales and their closing rates. So we're pumped. We're going to dive into a whole bunch of different stuff. But Katherine, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much, Matthew. It is a pleasure to be here. And it's interesting you say about 30 years in corporate America.
Oh, sorry.
You're
corporate.
right. You're right. Because although I'm based in Australia, I have worked for big multinational corporates that are American as well as European as well. So I have worked for several corporates. But just so your listeners do know, I'm actually from Brisbane, Australia. But I'm originally from the UK in England. I'm from Liverpool. So
Okay.
I have a bit of my accent, for some of you trying to figure out where I'm from, that Liverpool accent and then an Australian accent combined. So it can be very confusing for people.
No, it's so funny, the things that were happening rapid pace in my mind, because I was like, I always just want to attach the word America to corporate for whatever reason. That's how we're like corporate America here. But I was like, no, wait, that's not right. But as you were talking, I was like, no, she's from Australia. But then as I was about to say that, I was like, wait, I thought she was from Australia, but I'm actually hearing something else in there. And so you nailed it. You unraveled the mystery before I got myself in a bind.
Yeah, I knew what was going in your head because I'm a mind reader.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, I've got questions, but we'll just dive into things. But
Sure.
I kind of like to open it up like, man, what's the biggest thing on your heart and mind right now as whether it's a book you're reading or things that you're like a particular problem that you're solving, or, in this world where you're working with people in sales, but it could be anything. I'm just curious, like what's got your fascination and curiosity right now?
Well, right now in business, for growing my business, I'm at the point where I've set everything up. I've got my training course is all online. It's got people running through it. It's being tested. It's beautiful. It works. I've got my sales funnel. So the marketing system's been set up. I've got my sales funnel, which is my sales masterclass. I'm out on social media platforms like a lot of people, and I'm working on my marketing and sales strategies now. And I always say to all my clients and everyone should have a goal. First of all, your goal, but you need to have strategies of how you're going to achieve your goal. And then below that, you need the tactics and the action steps of how you're going to achieve the strategies. So if you work on the daily activities, you achieve your strategies will help you achieve your goal. And then it's also important to have a bigger purpose above the goal. That's the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
So what I'm working on at the moment that's taking a lot of my focus are the two strategies I've been working on, which is podcast guesting, which is what we're doing now, Matthew. So I love this because I love talking to people. I'm a salesperson. So I like getting out and talking to people, whether it's face to face in the flesh or whether it's on Zoom. I think a lot of people now, we're getting more familiar with using technology. So it's great. We can now talk to people across the world, from anywhere in the world. It's fabulous technology. And so I've embraced that with podcast guesting. And also my other strategy is joint ventures. So I'm actually now specifically working on finding joint venture partners and for people who want to be referrers and affiliates for sending people my way to my sales masterclass. And that way I'm adding value to their audiences. And also it's an affiliate, so obviously it's a win-win. Their clients get the training, they may become a client of mine, and if they do, there's the affiliate payment. So that's a strategy that I'm also implementing at the moment. So those two things are the main ones at the moment that I've been doing.
I love that. That's cool. It's so the game of creating a business is so fascinating. I know for myself, as I'm in a similar phase where I love I was in like theater at different times in high school and college. So the element of YouTube and just the physicality of being able to see people, the stuff that I'm drawn to is getting lost in YouTube and watching long interviews and dialogue. So that's something I'm like, oh, this is so fun creating a YouTube show. But I'm with you. Likewise, creating different elements to the business that I'm been building and growing, and it's there, it's so fascinating. There's this, sometimes when you're building a business, there's so much you can do that it's like, and there's so much to master that sometimes for me, what I found in at different times as I built different businesses and in the one now, it's so often it's the mental emotional game that I have to keep engaging in. It's like, man, there's so many, like you said, sales funnels and marketing strategies and admin that there can be this wave of overwhelm or anxiety.
Overwhelm. And you see, I'm mind reading again. I'm thinking at any minute now he's going to say the word overwhelm.
As I'm doing this, imagine
Yeah.
a giant tsunami hitting you, and the word is overwhelm.
Overwhelm.
And it's so that's for me, like as a business owner, I'm like, yeah, it's the two, and it's the strategies and tactics of moving the business forward. And then for me, half the game is just the mental, emotional game of whether it's taking care of my body, getting sleep, working out, and then this anxiety, this overwhelm, like, man, managing that's just to get me to the point where I can hit those things. Because sometimes at the end of the day, I'm like, man, I'm fried. I just don't have it in me to do X, Y, Z. And I'm curious, what's your, whether it's in corporate world or whatever, or personal world, like, I'm curious, what's been your experience with, burnout, overwhelm, and experiencing those, whether it's a story or what's that been like for you?
Well, I think everybody will have experienced overwhelm at some stage in their career, whether it's in corporate as an employee or whether it's self-employed in business. It's so easy to become overwhelmed, especially these days with technology and the options and choices that we have. I mean, for growing a business, you've got, you can do Facebook ads, you can do podcasting, you can do joint ventures, you can do affiliate marketing, you can go and do events. I mean, the list goes on, and we are bombarded on Facebook and YouTube with ads telling us this is the next thing that you need to do. If you're not doing LinkedIn, then you're not gonna grow a business. If you're not doing YouTube, you're not going to grow a business. And I think a big problem for a lot of business owners is because there's all these shiny things that come to us, and I want to do this and I want to do that, and what happens is it causes confusion and overwhelm, and decisions cannot be made when people are confused. And you can't move forward when you're trying to juggle, and I call it spinning plates. Like, you're spinning a bit of Facebook, you're spinning podcasts, you're spinning JVs, you're trying to do lives, you're trying to be a parent in some cases, maybe you've got elderly parents, children, you've got you're trying to stay healthy and eat healthy, the other things in life that come together. So that's what becomes so overwhelming. And I think the answer to it is, there's a few ways. I think firstly, as I said before, we talked about having the goal and the purpose and a goal and your strategies and your tactics. I think when you're starting out in business, you've got to have a very clear reason why you're doing it. And it's more than just money. It's got to be that bigger purpose. Now, for me, it's having freedom to travel. So that's my bigger purpose, freedom to travel and to be able to help people all over the world. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. That's what helps keep me moving when I'm having a day when I'm not got the energy that I should have to keep going. I'm tired. It's the end of the day or the end of the week. I just don't want to get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning for an early morning call with someone. I have to remind myself the reason why I'm doing this. So I'm building my lifestyle business around helping as many people around the world and being able to travel and have the freedom to do that. Now, then I have my goal, my financial goals for my business, but under that are my strategies of podcasting that I talked about and JV partnerships. The third one I'm going to be adding later this year is going to be, I'm going to start doing the Facebook paid ads. So that'll be a third strategy, but I'm not doing it now. I'm not doing that now because I'm focusing on the two strategies at the moment. If I gave myself Facebook and then I gave myself LinkedIn and I gave myself another strategy, it's too much. It's spinning plates. So I think the key is have a specific goal, have your specific strategies, but choose one or two strategies and just dial in on those strategies. Shut everything else out. Stop scrolling through Facebook because you're going to see someone tell you something that you're not doing that you should be. And that's just their opinion. That isn't reality. That isn't fact. Stick with your plan and work your plan. And that works in sales and that works in business.
Yeah.
And if you do that, and when you do get that feeling of overwhelm, look
Yeah.
at your to-do list, look at those actions and just chunk it down.
Yeah.
Chunk it into bite-sized pieces. And then
Yeah.
just give yourself, this is the 1 or 2 things I need to do today to move forward. Because you can't do it all in one go. It's too hard. None of us can do it. We're not superhumans. So yeah, overwhelm is a big problem.
No, and you're so right. And there's a huge value in chunking it down. I know I've experienced the benefit of breaking it down into manageable pieces and then choosing 1 or 2 things. And it's so true. Like when I'm getting overwhelmed and just anxious, when I'm able to come back, it's like, okay, hey, Rollins, just do like one of the things I said is like, hey, I'm going to host 100 guests, do 100 episodes. And then we'll just kind of relook at everything, relook at the show where we're at. But like, hey, for the next 100 episodes, just go for it. And yeah, it's helpful to be like, okay, there's, like you said, hey, there's 1 or 2 things I'm working on, really focusing on, build those and then expand from there. Because when I feel like, oh, I have to master everything about business all at once, it's like, forget it. Just forget it. Yeah.
It won't work. When I started out, the reason I got into business was after 30 years in corporate sales, so face-to-face sales for over 30 years. And then I was made redundant, but I already had a plan in my mind. I always had the goal of wanting to be a business owner, to have an online coaching program and to be able to do coaching, serving people, and basically help people who have not been as fortunate as I have. I've had a lot of training over the years in sales, and I've had 30 years to practice and implement. So to me, it comes quite naturally. Although having said that, I am still learning all the time. But now I'm in a position where I can give back and I can help other business owners who've not had the training to be able to get some of those basic skills and to be able to coach and mentor them through that whole process so they can grow their business. And so I was made redundant a couple of years ago, which was a blessing. It was a blessing. I was ready to leave. And the interesting thing is I'd spent the previous 18 months writing a book about sales. I had done a complete brain dump of everything I knew about selling. But when I first did it, I planned out, I had sticky notes on the dining room table. So I had to think, so what is it that I would want to teach if I'm teaching a sales training course? And writing a book. I was writing the book with the intention of a course down the path. And it was all on sticky notes because it was just overwhelming the amount of information I could teach. I needed to chunk it down. So I chunked it down into 3 categories: the mindset of selling, the strategic actions of selling, and then the sales conversation. And so then when I had those 3 categories, I then chunked that down even further. So what were the topics that I needed to talk about when I talk about the mindset of selling? And so the fears of the fear of judgment, fear of failure, all the fears that people have, that was one part. And so I then, little sticky notes, I put that underneath that column. And so I built out the outline of my book with sticky notes on the dining room table. And I was moving things around and going, no, that doesn't go there. And then I'd think, I get an idea. I should include that as well. Where would that go? And so I took the time to plan it out first.
Yeah.
Put it on a spreadsheet. And then when I started writing, and I just started from chapter 1 and I started writing. But what I did is I just took that one sticky note, that idea, and then I chunked down lines, subheadings of what I wanted to write about, and then I just wrote it. And then the next day, I'd move on, I'd go with the next sticky note, and I'd just chunk that down. And so what I did is this big, overwhelming idea of writing a book about everything I know about sales, I chunked it down. So every day, I just had one thing I needed to do. And I was working mornings and evenings and weekends because I was still working at this stage.
Wow. Yeah.
But by the time I got to 18 months later, it was pretty well written. It was in editing stage, and then I got made redundant. And so now what I've done is, and it took a while for me to, as I was creating the business, to convert what I'd written in the book into an online training program. So what did I do? I just got each chapter, I reread it, re-edited it, and then I put it out into a PowerPoint presentation. And as I went through the book, each chapter, each lesson, all the way through, I was editing again and adding new things as, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That, where would I put that? And it was constantly evolving. It took me another 4.5 months of full-time focus.
Yeah.
So I wasn't overwhelmed with networking and marketing and Facebook. I just went, I'm creating now. I spent 4.5 months totally focused on
Mm,
creating the product. And
mm.
when that was done, it was done well, then I could move on to my next project. And I think when you're in business, you've got to chunk it down into projects that you're working on and
Yeah.
just what you need to do before you move on and try something else. So don't go spinning plates. You'll be overwhelmed.
No, you're so right. And that's really, I've definitely used I've definitely used sticky notes at different times, even whether it was goal setting or thematic stuff. Like I would even use colored sticky notes and then kind of post them up to have like different topics. So sticky notes can be a really fun way of organizing stuff. And because you can, you can pull a sticky note and be like, no, it belongs over there, that belongs over there. So
Yeah. And
uh
I'm old school, so I'm pad and a pen, and I'm sticky notes, and I've only really in the last couple of years really transitioned from a paper-based diary, because when I was out on the road, I used to love having a paper-based diary. I could
yeah,
flick through quickly. Whereas now I use a calendar, so I
yeah,
am slowly moving into more utilizing the technology that's available.
yeah,
But for a lot of people, you can do that. I mean, there's this software now that you can use to organize your thoughts. And if that
yeah,
works for you, then
yeah,
as long as you use something, whether it's sticky notes or technology, be able to
yeah,
organize, yeah, and plan what you're going to do before you
yeah.
actually start doing it. Yeah.
Plan the work and work the plan. That's and it's so I in my work right now, I do sales as well during the kind of my business that I run during the day. I'm in logistics and supply chain management, and it's sales itself is it's such a fascinating gig. When I built a magazine in I live here in Portland, Oregon, USA. So when I built a few years ago a magazine, it was basically the concept was like a social magazine, like a neighborhood newsletter. And so the idea was like real estate brokers, landscapers, contractors, people that would want to do business with the affluent people in this neighborhood. I built so I would have different articles like family of the month, pet of the month, garden of the
Yeah.
month, and then we would do social events around the neighborhood. But then I would sell advertising to these business owners that would want to do business and build relationships in there. But it was interesting. I built it from scratch, and I didn't know I was commuting like an hour and a half away, and so a lot of the social magazines in the area were people that lived in them and had a lot of connections. So, anyways, I didn't know anybody, but I just went for it. But I had never done kind of in-person sales really successfully before, and so I was not good. I was just like doggedly determined. It took me like they were like, hey, the company, so it was basically like a franchise, but the company was like, hey, you should be able to do this in 4 months. I think it took me like a year to build. And
And did they teach you how to sell? Did they give you any
they
training in
they did,
sales?
yeah. They had a really good, they had some really good modeling to walk you through that, but still I was rough around the edges. But it's I'm grateful for I feel like, man, everyone should get a sales job at some point. It builds so much grit. Like it builds so much gritty,
Resilience,
yeah, resilience, just a shell. Like
confidence.
people can, okay, like, and it was so hard. Like I was like, even during that time, I was overwhelmed, anxious, like just like stressed because it was a ton, but it built this like steel in me of like, oh, okay, like, all right, I can take a beating every day and just like get back up. So sales really can develop this confidence, this
Yeah.
tenacity. It's like, oh, I can hear no, I can get rejected. I'm okay. I don't know if you had that experience or stories like that where you've, been in sales and you kind of have those like, oh, okay, that was bad, but I can just hit it again tomorrow.
You can learn from anything that happens to
Yeah.
you, whether it's good or bad.
Mm,
And that's always an interpretation from yourself. But anything that happens, you can learn from. And I think with sales, I mean, when I started out, same thing. I didn't have training. It was back in the
yeah.
UK. I just graduated from with a business degree in
Yeah.
marketing. I wasn't taught in the degree how to
Yeah.
sell. I mean, you heard
Uh-huh.
about what selling was, but really not how to do it.
Yeah.
And the job I joined, like many companies, the smaller companies, they teach you about the product. So I'm sure they taught you about the product. This is the product. And
Yeah.
it does this and it does that, and this is how it works. Press this button or whatever. They tell you about the product, but they often don't tell you about how to sell. And they've
Yeah.
employed you as a salesperson. They expect that you can sell. I mean, you've
Yeah.
sold yourself into the job. So
Yeah.
you've got some sales skills because everybody sells. If you've got a job, you have sold yourself into that job.
Yeah.
And selling, I think, well, people have a misunderstanding about what selling actually is. And
Yeah.
that's why it terrifies them. And that's why they don't even want to go there, ever be a
Yeah.
salesperson, or even learn about selling, because they're like,
Yeah.
oh, that, yeah, the whole impression is
Hmm.
salespeople are sleazy and pushy and they're con artists and they're manipulative and I don't like them and I don't want to be like that. But
Yeah.
there's a problem for business owners and
Yeah.
salespeople is
Yeah.
you want to get the customers. You want to
Yeah.
get new customers. You want to help them. You've got a good product. You want to sell your product because you want to make your commissions. You want your,
Hmm.
you need money for your business, pay your bills. But at the
Hmm.
same time, if you've got this mentality that you don't want to be seen as a salesperson because they're
Hmm.
pushy, I don't want to be like that. Then I always say it's like when you're driving a car. It's like having your foot on the accelerator and the brake at the same time.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want this and you're driving and you're doing everything you think must do to get a sale, but then your mindset is stopping you because you don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
And when that's happening, what happens
Yeah.
with the car?
Yeah.
Nothing. It just
Yeah. Yeah.
you jump
Yeah.
kangaroo hops and you're spinning around. So that's what it's like in your brain, that it's stopping you. Your mindset and your thoughts about what selling is going to
Yeah.
be putting the brakes on you getting the sales, because then all the fears are going to come up. Fear of rejection, fear of,
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. And then when you are forced, if you've got the job or you're going out and talking to people and you're forced to stand in front of someone and talk about your product, that's what you do. You
Yeah.
just talk about your product. You don't actually have a conversation.
Mhm.
So we've all had this bad experience of a salesperson who knocks on the door or stops us in a shopping center, or they might make an appointment, come and see us, and then they just launch into their product.
Yeah.
And you're like, hold
Yeah.
on a minute. Oh, you don't even know me. I don't know you.
Yeah.
You don't want to, yeah, you just don't want to be that person. So that's
Yeah.
why, yeah, that's why people don't want to be salespeople. And the big issue is lack of training. They don't
Yeah.
know what selling is, and they haven't been trained how to sell in a
Mhm.
non-sleazy, non-salesy way. But everyone can learn the skills.
No, you're so right. It's the idea of like, oh, sales, the definition of sales is to like manipulate someone to get something that they don't want or need in order so that I can make money. What would be, what would be your definition of sales, or how do you think of what sales really is?
Well, for me, selling there's a number of things, but basically, as a salesperson, you are a problem solver. You
Mm.
are solving people's problems. You're building, and how do you do that? Well, you have to start by building relationships.
Mm.
So you build relationships. You need to be able to communicate effectively. So we are effective communicators. And when we're effectively communicating, that's when we can find out what are the problems, the needs, the challenges that the person in front of us has. And
Yeah.
only when we know what those challenges, those pains are
Yeah.
we even in a position to be able to offer our product or service as a solution, because the
Yeah.
person in front of you may not need your product. Not everybody needs your product. So this
Hmm.
is what we say, you need to be in front of the right person.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like, think of it like this: if you go to the doctor and you went into the doctor's and you sat down and the doctor just said, all right, oh, hi Matthew, here, let me give you this script for these antibiotics or whatever, here you go. And you haven't said, and he hasn't asked you a single question. He
Yeah.
doesn't even know why you've come in. You might have come in because you've got a pain in your arm and it's you've got a
Yeah.
fracture or something. Don't need antibiotics. But it's a bit like that. The doctor, good doctors will ask you, they'll say, Matthew, well, what can I do for you today? What's the problem?
Yeah.
What is your problem? And you will then tell them what your problem is. And they will
Yeah.
ask more questions to find out, oh, well, where does it hurt? Oh, move your arm. Let's have a look. Get on the bed. Let me have a feel. Okay, open
Yeah.
your mouth. Let's look at, take your temperature. Let's do all
Yeah.
this diagnostics. Let's find out what's really going on here. And then only after they've done that, will they prescribe a solution. Now, the
Yeah.
solution might be an antibiotic, or it might be a referral to go and get an x-ray
Yeah.
or see a specialist.
Yeah.
But they can't do that, give you the solution until they know what your problem is. And it's exactly the same with sales. So by going in and just doing the verbal vomit of our product, as I call it, the verbal vomit,
Bleh.
without finding out anything about the person in front of us,
Yeah.
then we're just going to put them off. It's like blah, blah, blah. It's like they're not going to listen. They're not
Mm.
interested.
Mm.
So we can change that around by simply following a sales process,
Mm.
simple sales that anyone can learn and anyone can do, and it can change the whole dynamic of a sales conversation. So there is a pleasurable conversation
Yeah.
between two people where you
Yeah.
have the opportunity to solve someone's problem. And isn't that
Yeah.
great when you can solve someone's problem? And if not, you
Yeah.
might refer them to someone else who can solve their problem.
Mm. I really like that. I like of thinking about salespeople as like, hey, my job as a salesperson is to solve problems. And
Yeah.
it's extremely persuasive when someone is like, hey, you've got this problem, and I'm like, yeah, I do, and they're like, I can solve it, and I'm like, sold,
Yeah.
solve it.
Yeah. And asking permission.
Yeah.
They don't ask. If you don't ask permission, it's like anything. It's just be polite, be
Yeah.
courteous.
Yeah.
So even though you might ask the person in front of you is telling you all about their problem and the
Yeah.
pains and the issues, and in your mind you're thinking, well, I know that my product can help you.
Yeah.
You don't jump in. You wait until the right
Yeah.
time. You keep asking the questions, and then when it is time for you to go transition into that solution stage of the conversation or the resolution, I'm going to resolve that problem for you. Ask permission. You
Mm-hmm.
might say something like, you know, I hear what you're saying. It sounds, and you repeat back to them what their issue is and what they've told you, and you say, I am. Would you like me to help you solve that problem?
Right.
Or, I've got something I think could help you. Would you be interested in hearing about it?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're asking permission. And so when they go, yeah, if you can solve my problem, that'll be great. How?
Yeah.
Well, then they're asking you to help them. I
Yeah.
mean, they may say no, it's fine, but
Yeah.
if you've done it right, the first part of the conversation, then they're going to want to know how you can help. Then and only then do you start talking about your product. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's a way of talking about your product as well, the right way,
Mm-hmm.
the right way and a wrong way. But you have to have that transition. Yeah, but
Yeah.
asking permission is the first step.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it makes me think of, it's there's when you have a domain, sales and business, those same principles that apply there show up in so many different fields and other domains. And so what's always fascinating for me is finding a principle and then seeing how it shows up in all of these different areas of life. And so sales, for example, that what you said, asking permission, like you want to get agreements along the way before you. It's rude to tell someone you can solve their problem when when they're like, I don't have a problem. It's like, oh my gosh, I just thought
Yeah,
no one would want to live like you live. And
yeah,
they're like, I love my life, And
yeah.
so I think about one thing my wife and I will talk about is that element of like asking permission in relationships to speak into someone's life, because, we'll see this, whether it's in our family dynamics or just other relationships. It's like, oh man, it's so important to be invited, for someone to invite you into their life, because there's nothing more off-putting than a friend or a family member that like comes into your space and is like, hey, I just thought I would take the opportunity to tell you this problem you have and how really you can solve it. And it's like, dude, time out. A,
Yeah.
I know I have problems. B, like you have no invitation or permission to do that. And so I just think that there's so many principles in sales that like, hey, and right, no one wants to be a salesperson because the idea of like, I don't want to be that greasy
Awkward.
slimy. But
Feels
there's so many
awkward.
principles that like, if you can learn this principle of asking permission, and like that applies, all your other relationships and your family and friends will be
Yes.
so much better.
Yes, absolutely. And I think partly it's like people, I never did telephone sales. So, and the job I would absolutely hate to do is just sit
Yeah.
on the phone,
Yep.
cold calling from a list,
Yeah.
at 6 o'clock at night when people are having dinner, they're
Yeah.
interrupting, and it's scripted, it's fake,
Yeah.
it's false, they're just out to make a sale, and it's just horrible. I don't even talk to
Yeah.
them. I don't even answer the phone.
Mhm.
So I don't. That's not an area that I teach on because it's not what I
Mhm.
do or I've ever done.
Yeah.
However, I do use the phone. You
Yeah.
do need to use the phone as a salesperson to make an appointment, not
Yeah.
to sell. And
Yeah.
you want to make sure that you're talking people you're calling people that are actually your potential customer. So,
Yeah.
someone knocked on the door recently and we're talking about solar panels. And I'm like, have you looked at the roof?
Yeah.
We've got solar panels. We don't need any more. I mean, it's simple research.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What a waste of time, waste of my time. But I always use the phone to
Mhm.
make an appointment. And that's
Yeah.
the only objective and goal on the
Yeah.
phone is to make an appointment face to
Yeah.
face. Now, obviously, you need to know how to handle that conversation as well, but
Yeah.
you need to be talking to the right person
Yeah.
who is open to, like, if you're selling into a corporate, there's going to be supply managers that are expecting people who are selling products for that industry to be
Yeah.
calling them up. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
people do need the help and support of salespeople to help them
Yeah.
make a decision on buying a product.
Yeah.
So there is an expectation for a lot of people, they will get those calls. But the purpose of the call is always to make an appointment.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then when you get the appointment, then when you meet, they know you're meeting to talk. Yes, you're going to talk about your product.
Yeah.
And they know, but if you go straight into for the kill and talking about the product, even though that they knew you were coming to talk about the product, you're still going
Yeah.
to lose them.
Yeah.
So you still need that skill of being able to open up the conversation, build the rapport, ask the
Mhm. Mhm.
questions, and build it to the point where you can,
Yeah.
with permission, start
Yeah.
talking about the problem.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of steps to the process of selling,
Yeah.
which can be overwhelming because
Yeah.
it is the sales process, the
Yeah.
conversational process. I mean, there's more to it. There's stuff you do before and after a call, but just talking about the sales process, sales
Yeah.
conversation process, there are many elements to it. But if
Yeah.
you chunk it down and you learn each of those elements and then you put
Mhm.
it together, it becomes a piece of art.
Yeah.
It becomes, and the more you do it, the better you are at doing it. It becomes more natural. You're
Yeah.
gonna get better results. So you got to
And
learn skill.
no, and it's oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. Just I got me
Okay.
thinking like, I think about as business owners, a lot of times there's Tony Robbins talks about the three different types of business owners. There's the artist, there's the manager, and then there's the entrepreneur, or artist, leader, manager, entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur lives for risk and lives for the thrill of it, which is very few of us are actually that type.
Yeah.
And then there, the leader manager is or the business owner type is actually someone that likes the administrative process. And then there's the creative. And so it's interesting that for, I think, a lot of business owners that start off a small business, it's like, hey, that a lot of us do it for a lot of people are the creative types. They're the artists. They love the craft that they're making, whether
Yes.
that could be a service, but it's like, man, I love the thing that I'm doing. But then actually learning, that the sales part of like, okay, you've actually got to go in and you've got to handle this. You've got to actually be able to communicate and articulate
Yeah.
what you're doing. And you've actually got to be able to learn how to ask questions and that whole sales process. So I think it's such an important skills for business owners and especially small business owners, because sometimes there's a whole lot of fine-tuned skills there that they might just be like,
Yeah.
well, I have this great product or service. Like, of
Yeah.
course people are going to want it. It's like, well, there's actually a path to get them there that you got to take them on.
Yes, and I think that's another big problem for a lot of small business owners is they have this great idea of a
Yeah.
product. Maybe they've bought into a product. It could be someone else's product that's a
Mhm.
franchise, or
Mhm.
they've created their product. They could be a coach or a
Yeah.
consultant, or they've got into real estate or network marketing. I mean, there's so many different business
Mhm.
areas they could get into, and they get in and they're passionate about the product.
Yeah.
They're passionate about helping people. But unfortunately, they're not they think they're in the business of that product. So they might
Yeah.
go, I'm a real estate agent. And what do you
Mhm.
do? What business are you in? Real estate. Or I'm in network marketing, or whatever, the weight loss product, or
Yeah.
I'm a coach. And the
Yeah.
reality is that is not the real business that you're in.
Yeah.
The real business that they are in, and we are all in as business owners,
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, is
Mhm.
in the business of marketing and selling the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And most of our time, especially when you're starting out and you haven't got
Yeah.
sales teams and managers doing all the legwork for you, but as a small business owner, entrepreneur, you're doing everything.
Yeah.
So you're doing the creation and the craft,
Mhm.
but and you need to do that. You need to have a good
Mhm.
product, but the majority of the time needs to be on the marketing and selling of that
Yeah.
product. Because unless you market it and sell it,
Yeah.
it
You're
doesn't
gonna,
matter what the product is. You're not going to get any sales. So it doesn't matter how good it is. So
yeah.
I would say marketing and sales gets the money into the business.
Yeah.
A good product will keep the money in the business,
Yeah.
which means if it's a good product, there won't be refunds
Yeah.
and people wanting to drop out off
Yeah.
returns. So I say 80%, 70, 80% of business time should be spent on the marketing and
Yeah.
prospecting and selling. So if you're not doing that every
Yeah.
day to some degree,
Yeah.
then you're going to really struggle to get your business off the ground.
Yeah. No, that's so well put. It's like you're in the excuse me, you're in the business of marketing and selling your business
Yeah.
is really what it is. And I'm curious, you said like you were in sales for 30 years, and I think oftentimes there's elements of who we were as children or in our childhood that you can point to sparks of like, oh, like that was that gift, or that was that piece, or sometimes it's just experiences we've been through as kids, like, oh, like I had this teacher that was just so awesome, and that's why I got into whatever. Are there stories from your childhood where you're like, oh, I this kind of spark of a gift or an experience was you could really see the young saleswoman there? I'm just curious.
Oh, absolutely. I smile thinking back to it now. It was pretty inevitable that I would become a salesperson.
Yeah.
And I started selling when I was about 7 years old. And my dad had bought boxes of apples and oranges from the market. So, like a crate of apples and oranges.
Yeah.
My older sister, she was 4 years older, she was weighing them out and bagging them up.
Hmm.
And my job and my twin sister's job was to go out and sell these apples and oranges door to door. So it sounded like a big game. It was like a lot of fun. And we had a doll's pram. So we loaded
Yeah.
up the doll's pram with these bags that had been weighed out,
Okay.
like they're all measured out. So all we had to do was hand bags out. We literally went up the street, door to door, knocking on the door, 7 years old,
Yeah.
knocking on the door, and basic sales, no training. It
Yeah.
was, do you want to buy some apples and oranges?
Yeah.
Now, we probably had the advantage there of
Yeah.
being cute, little
Hmm.
red-headed twin 7-year-olds, with the, smiling at the door. And we had this expectation that they would buy. And of
Yeah.
course they did, because, you want to help kids out. So it was an easy
Yeah.
sell. There you go.
Hmm.
Even probably, I don't know how much it was, a few pounds. There you go.
Yeah.
And we went out, sold, came back home, topped the pram up, and off we went again until we sold all the apples and oranges. And it was fun. It was great. And so that first experience for me, because it was so easy, because I was so young,
Yeah.
obviously it gave me the confidence then. And when I was a
Yeah.
bit older, when I was about 16, I went door knocking again because I wanted some extra money. And so I did door knocking to wash cars.
Mm.
I was going to wash cars for money, and that's what I did. But I got a lot of no's then. I was a bit older, and but I did get some work where I'm walking with my bucket. I had my bucket there and the sponge ready to go. All they had to do is provide the water. I had the cleaner thing, and I got more no's that time, and that was a bit
Yeah.
harder. But I carried on doing it because I wanted the money. I had the drive. I wanted the money.
Yeah.
And also I used to knock on doors to sell tickets for the school fete. You get like tickets. They do at schools now. They do sell boxes of chocolate,
Yeah.
raise money,
Yeah.
send the kids door to door. And the
Yeah.
people will always buy from kids.
Yeah.
So I think that gave me confidence of being able to go door
Yeah.
knocking and do that hard sell. I didn't realize, it was called selling or anything like that. I
Yeah.
had no idea. We just did it. And
And
so,
that's
yeah.
No, keep going. I just love
Uh,
it.
the other thing is, when I was about 13, though, I didn't have, I did have a little bit of fear. Me and my twin sister both realized we didn't feel that confident. So even though we'd done this door knocking, we still didn't feel as teenagers that we're very confident. We were a bit scared a bit nervous about talking to strangers.
Yeah.
And so what we did when we went out to the city, because Saturday afternoon was Saturday was a big shopping day in the UK. We go out, and so we decided to to step out of our comfort zone,
Yeah.
courageous. I always say courage comes before confidence. Courageously take action and step out of our comfort zone
Yeah.
so that we could be more confident.
Yeah.
So what we did is we'd walk up to strangers and just say, "Excuse me, have you got the time, please?" That's it.
Yeah.
And they go, "Yeah, right, it's about 11:30. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you," and then walk away. But walking up to a stranger and asking a question when I was 13 was a little bit nerve-wracking. But
Hmm.
what I learned from that was once I did it a few times, it became easier. It was like, what was I scared of? It was,
Yeah.
just asking for time. Then we upped the ante, and then we asked policemen because there was someone of authority. So that was a bit
Yeah.
scary. And again, I remember I'm only 13. So again, then we'd walk up. And again, felt a bit scared because we've upped the ante now as a police officer, but we'd walk up and we'd say, "Excuse me, have you got the time, please?" And they go,
Yeah.
"Yeah, 11:30." And I think by doing that, putting
Mm.
ourselves out there, knowing first of all that we weren't as confident as we wanted to be, and we found a way
Yep.
to practice and to step it out of our comfort zone and take action on it. And what I learned from that, which I have employed all the way through my life, is if
Yeah.
ever I'm faced with a new challenge, something I've never done before, and I feel those nerves coming up, I know all I have to do is be courageous and
Yeah.
step forward and take action and just
Yeah.
go and do it. And it won't be perfect the first time, but the more you do it, the better you'll get. And the first time, my first sales job, same thing. I was nervous and didn't know what I was doing, but I just kept doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Be courageous, step up and take action. It's so true. There's a quote about that, but also it was from, was it from, We Bought a Zoo, maybe, where he was talking to his kids about how he met their mother, and this thing of like, hey, sometimes all you need is like 10 seconds of courage, where he was like, I think it was from that movie, it could have been from something else, but it was basically like, walked by, he saw this beautiful woman, he's like, man, I really want to like meet her at the coffee shop. And so he was like, okay, I just need like 6 seconds of courage. So he's like, okay, go. He like walks in, gets in front of her, 10 seconds is up, but he's like, okay, I made it to like, I'm now in front of her and now I have to say something. And it's so true. It's that element of just, hey, just what would 15 seconds of courage look like? Like, you don't have to be courageous. No one can be courageous all day long. It's like, you just need moments. Like, you just need a couple.
I think you only need 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I follow Mel Robbins, and
Yeah.
I've got her book, The 5 Second Rule,
Yeah.
and she talks about this. She's researched that whole,
Yeah.
and it's 5 seconds. So she does the countdown: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Take action.
Yeah.
If you don't take action after that, if you allow more than 5 seconds to go, your chatter starts in your head. That doubt, that fear will quickly come up and tell you, no, you can't do that. You're not good enough. What do you think you're doing? Everyone's going to laugh at you. Whatever the story is that you've got, it'll come up and it'll start talking you out of it. And so that's why, if you have this idea, this great thought, I'm going to go and talk to that beautiful woman or that handsome man, or I'm going to go ask her what the time is to a stranger. Whatever it is, make that first sales call.
Yeah.
The phone, whatever. Don't allow the time for the fear to come up.
Yeah.
Just take action and do it.
Yeah.
Just take action and do it. Because once you start doing it, then it's like you're into it then.
Yeah.
And you may not, as I say, you may not be perfect when you do something the first time. People don't expect you to be perfect.
Yeah.
When kids start to learn to walk, they don't just get on, on their 2 legs and off they go. They fall down and they fall down again. But they take the action and they keep doing it consistently, persistently. And it's the same with any skill, any fear you need to overcome, whether it's a fear of selling, fear of putting going live on Facebook, or putting a YouTube video out, or getting on a podcast for the first time. You've just got to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
That would have been perfect, but I'll do it again and it'll get better.
It's so true. And when you were talking about how you and your sister, when you were 13, kind of like training yourself to be bold and courageous and go ask people for the time, it makes me think it's almost like training ourselves to experience rejection, almost like a vaccine, almost like an inoculation, like, oh, hey, like I actually just need to like get enough of this thing so my immune system can kind of like build up a resistance to it. And it
Yes.
makes me think of, there was this podcast an episode that I listened to. I don't know if it was on Invisibilia or some podcast show a few years back, but it was an episode of this guy who was talking about, I don't know if he had this really intense struggle with being rejected or this fear of being rejected, but he talked about how he started rejection proofing his life. And he was like, he would just start doing like crazy things, like making crazy requests. And he was like, the point wasn't for people to say no. The point was just to ask outlandish things of people and just go for it. So he would like, I'm sure some of it was probably like asking women on dates, but other things would be like, and paraphrasing, it's been a few years, but it'd be things like, he's at a grocery store, and he would just go to a random stranger and like, hey, I don't have a car. Would you mind giving me a ride home? Things like that. And then like, he would begin to extend it where he would be like, he would like a city, like an hour away, like for here in Portland would be like Salem. He'd be like, hey, could you give me a ride to a random stranger at a store? Like, hey, would you mind giving me a ride to Salem? It's an hour away, and just like things were like, that's insane. Like, that's so outlandish. Like no one would ever do that. But it's this thing of one, like people will say yes more than you would imagine when you're just making requests. And Tim
Yeah.
Ferriss will say the same thing. Like when he would travel, like sometimes he would just ask like, hey, would you give me an upgrade to my hotel room? Or,
Oh, I've done that.
just things like that.
I've done that. If you don't ask, you don't get, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like the business at the end of a sales call. If you don't ask for a
Yeah.
sale, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
But I went to Japan once. It was many years ago.
Yeah.
And they don't do upgrades very much. I think they don't tend to do upgrades these
Yeah.
days. I used to ask a lot back in the 90s. But I
Yeah.
remember I was going to Japan. I was traveling on my own, and I was
Yeah.
meeting a friend over there. And I was just economy return.
Yeah.
And I remember I just said, oh, any chance of an upgrade? And they gave me an upgrade. I got
Yeah.
business class. So I flew to Tokyo from Brisbane, business class.
Yeah.
Then I had my holiday. I came back 2 weeks later, and I was at the airport. And so I thought, well, I'll ask again. So
Yeah.
I knew a little bit of Japanese, just to say, polite things like,
Yeah.
arigato and all this sort of stuff. So anyway,
Yeah.
I said, could I have any chance? I told them that I had this upgrade on the way over. It was so wonderful. I was so grateful. I showed my appreciation. And then I said, is there any chance of having an upgrade on the way back? This guy, Japanese fella, didn't say a word. Didn't look at me, just, and I just thought, but I've asked. Anyway, and then he hands the ticket, and they do that little bow, hand the ticket back to me, and I was like, oh, arigato. And then I looked at it. It was back in the day when it was a paper ticket.
Yeah.
First class. I flew back first. I've never been first class ever since then. But I went economy ticket. I went business over and first class back. Now, what happens in first class is the pilot comes out to meet you, and talk to the passengers, and you get a glass and champagne, and you're there with it was the best thing ever. But I wouldn't, if I hadn't have asked, I wouldn't have got it.
Yeah.
And if they'd have said no, well, that's fine. I've lost nothing. I've lost nothing.
And it's like, they'll say in sales, right? Like the worst time to make a sale is when you need one. And it's that it comes when you're in a place of abundance, when you actually can't take on more clients and you're just calling someone to see if they want to get on your waiting list. Like that's the strongest position ever. And I just love that. Yeah. The just asking. And, sometimes my wife will be with me, and I'll ask for things just to see like, hey, any chance this or that. And she's kind of like, dude, and it's been fun to see her like start to lean into that a little bit, but it's so true. It's like you're at a restaurant, like it never hurts to like, as long as you're doing it like respectfully and with a smile, like no one is hurt. And so often people will just say yes. Strangers, like people in the service industry, they'll be like, what the heck? Sure. Like, and I love your story. I love your story.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. I
Um,
even told my mum, when she was visiting Australia once, and she was checking in to go back, and I said, ask for an upgrade, ask for
yeah,
an upgrade. I'm there. She said, ask for an upgrade. So she went up and she, oh, yeah. And she did. And she got an upgrade. She went back business class all the way back to England.
I mean,
I
this
think
is
when you're
literally,
traveling on your own, back in the day when
yeah,
they did do upgrades. If you were traveling on your own, you had a better chance. If you're
yeah,
traveling with the family, four of you, you're not going to. But
yeah.
single person traveling, yeah, there's always a spare seat somewhere in business or first. You never know.
I mean, even this, I'm like, it's inspiring me to be like, okay, Rollins, just, I don't know, next time you're at the airport or at a hotel or a
Yeah,
restaurant, just ask like what they just like, hey, do whatever they got. Like hey, you want to upgrade me to another room, or hey, any chance you want to throw a dessert
I've
on the
done that
house,
as well,
you know?
and they've said yes. Here's the other thing that could happen. Be aware of it. I have
Yeah.
asked for an upgrade, both at the airlines and in hotels, and they said, yeah, absolutely, and that will cost you. And they'll tell you what the price is for the
Yeah.
upgrade. I'd be like, oh no, I don't want to pay extra.
Yeah.
But so sometimes they might say, yes, you can upgrade, and this is the price.
Yeah.
So okay, you go. Okay. Oh no, thanks. I was just
Yeah.
wondering if you had any complimentary upgrades, but that's
Yeah.
okay. Thanks
Yeah.
anyway. You don't win
Totally.
them all.
And circling back, something else you said when you were kids, and you shared about selling when you were a kid, and it was just a game and it was fun and it was
Yep.
play.
Yep.
And it makes me think like I will naturally, when there's something I love, I will be a salesperson of it. It comes from this place of I'm so excited about this thing. I bring so much energy, and I just want my friends and family to do the thing. And it's like I don't know, you guys have Costco
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
for a number of reasons that I could do a whole episode on, like, I'm a big Costco fan. And so there's the things where like, I'm like, man, the amount of Costco memberships I probably sold, I should have gotten a commission on it. But those things where, and it's to the point of absolute like training and skill and strategy as a sales professional, or like learning the art and science of sales is so important. And then there's this other part that's like connecting to the unskilled, the untrained, like, man, raw energy, raw excitement, and
Yes.
pure belief is some of the most effective sales stuff. Like you don't have any idea what to say. You've never been trained, but you're just like, I love this thing.
Passion,
Yeah. When that,
passion and enthusiasm and belief in your product. You have to believe in
yeah,
your product or your
yeah,
service. And that comes through
yeah.
when you're
And it's like,
passionate and you gotta know
find,
what you're talking about.
find something like, and that's just like, man, if you can find something, if you're working for someone else, great. Or if it's your own thing, but like, if you're selling your own thing, man, create something that you're in love with, that
Yeah.
you can share from this, like, this is the greatest thing in the world, because that like intangible magic pixie dust is just, you can't make up for it. It made
And
me think of,
that takes you back to what we said earlier about your product has to be good, and it
yeah,
has to be a product that is good, that can solve people's
yeah,
problems. And you can change lives with
yeah,
your product. Like if you're
yeah,
coaching, you can change someone's business by coaching,
yeah,
training. I used to sell medical devices as well as pharmaceuticals. And, those products were life
yeah,
changing for
yeah,
people. When people go into hospital, they
yeah,
needed those products.
right,
It was terrible when we were on back order and we couldn't get
yeah,
stock. There's a child that needed a catheter, and we
yeah,
didn't have one in Brisbane. And I would do anything to try and find that catheter from another state or even New Zealand, and we get it, flown in or whatever. I would drive, for a few hours. Like
yeah,
I'd get a call, hey, we've got a case this afternoon. We need your
yeah,
product now.
yeah,
We had one on the shelf and we dropped it on the floor. We can't use it. And it was urgency, but I knew it was life changing. For
yeah,
someone to have to delay their surgery, and they've starved themselves for 10
mm-hmm,
hours or whatever
mm-hmm,
and got themselves all prepped. And then they
yeah,
go, oh, sorry, we dropped the device on the floor and we can't do it. You're going to have to wait till book you in for next week. I mean,
yeah,
so to be able to deliver a product, and get it to them, and it's like they're very appreciative.
yeah,
You may
yeah,
never even see the patient,
yeah,
but you've made a difference.
yeah. Yeah.
and have that passion, enthusiasm, the willingness to want to help people,
Yeah.
serve people, solve their problems, and be passionate and enthusiastic about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's the secret sauce, I
Yeah.
think,
It
that
makes up.
makes the good salespeople.
Yeah. It makes up for, you can certainly make incredible money and do a lot of good, even if you're not crazy in love with your product. But if you are, that's the
You've got
secret.
to have integrity.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never work for a tobacco company.
Yeah.
I don't smoke. I don't believe in
Yeah.
smoking.
Hmm.
It's not a it's not a good thing to do because we know now that smoking
Yeah.
causes cancer. So I
Yeah.
would never sell. It didn't matter how much money they would offer
Yeah.
me. I would never ever go into a company and sell a product like tobacco but I did work in medical and pharmaceutical because
Yeah.
I knew some of
Yeah.
those drugs. I worked with renal drugs, for
Yeah.
example, that changed the patient's lives. It was
Yeah.
a drug that gave them more energy. It meant they had quality of life.
Yeah.
And knowing that every patient that was on that drug that I was able to sell into that hospital meant that I
Yeah.
was helping those people. And I got to meet those people in the
Yeah.
units when they were getting dialyzed. And the medical devices, same thing.
Yeah.
Devices that people need for surgeries.
Hmm.
Knowing that it's that making a difference. And
Yep.
even now, I'm not selling a tangible product.
Yeah.
I'm selling, I mean, I'm a trainer and a coach, so I provide services for
Right.
coaching and training business owners. But I also know that my product, my service can
Hmm.
change people's lives.
Hmm.
And that's why I do it. That's why I enjoy doing it, because I'm still making a difference in someone's life.
Yep.
So it's in alignment with my values. And I think that actually that's a key thing.
Yeah.
Being aligned with your values. Like my
Yeah.
values with tobacco smoking, it's no alignment. So
Yeah.
if you're in a sales job or you're in a business for
Yeah.
yourself or for someone else, and your values are not aligned with the product or service or the culture of the
Yeah.
company, then there's going to be a disconnect.
Yeah.
Find a place and a product where you're aligned with the values.
Yeah.
With your values, and that will make a big difference as well.
That's where it gets fun after that. Man, I'm curious, what are a few questions I always like to ask are, one, are there any quotes either that span the breadth of your life or just perhaps now that you're like, this quote has been coming back to me, it on a rough day or on a looking for my North Star, it kind of is a guiding post. Any quotes that come off up to your mind?
Yeah, I love that you say North Star, because I always say that your purpose is your North Star,
Yeah.
because everyone needs a North Star.
Yeah.
It's the reason for getting out of bed in the morning, and it's the thing that keeps you going when you get the
Yeah.
rejections, is having
Yeah.
that real purpose.
Yeah.
But it's a very basic one. Everyone knows it.
Mhm.
It's a variation of it. But the Nikes just do it.
Yeah.
And I adapt that one to just get started. And that
Yeah.
goes into what I said
Yeah.
before about that Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. You've got to just
Yep.
take action, just get started.
Mhm.
And so just do it and just get
Mhm.
started, because people don't want to start things because all this
Yeah.
fear. And the
Mhm.
fear, it's like a big weight. It's like a bag of rocks on their back. It holds them back. If they
Yeah.
can get rid of those fears, and then they've got the lightness to be able to step forward and just get started. Just do it. Just get started.
Yeah.
Every day, do a little bit more. Just get started. If you don't want to, you don't want to, you're going to have a low energy day, just get started. Because it's like going to the gym. Sometimes I don't want to go to the gym. I'm not in the mood to go to the gym. But if I just get started, and that could mean just grab my gym bag and grab the car keys and start walking towards the car, just move forward and get started. And then the momentum picks up anyway. There's a book I was also reading, The Atomic Habits.
Yes.
James Clear. I've got it on the shelf.
Yep.
Yeah, James Clear. And he, the Atomic Habits, it's about, and it talks about just, if you don't want to exercise, but you need to exercise, just do one push-up.
Yeah.
Because once you've done one push-up, it's easy just to go, oh, I can do a few more. I can do one. So set yourself those smaller goals. Don't set yourself a big thing that you need to do for the day. Oh, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour. It's like, no, just say, well, I'm just going to go for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Once you get there, I'm in it now. I genuinely find, I don't know about you, but when I get to the gym, I don't never want to go. But once I get there, I actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to leave. I'm listening to a podcast, I'm doing my exercise, I'm feeling good. And then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I've got to leave now. The alarm's gone off because I've got, another appointment to get to. But
Yeah.
just get started. Whatever
Hmm.
it is that you don't want to do, just get started and do it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And that has played out in my life. One of the quotes, this is kind of a lifelong quote that I really enjoy. Uh, I watched the movie years ago. I watched the movie The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. It's about
Oh, yes. In
yeah.
India.
Yep. It's about
Yeah.
a young Indian hotel owner, and he has all these like beautiful photos of it, and it's supposed to be kind of this retirement village, and then this collection of retired people come, and it's just kind of run down, and and they're like, what the heck, man? And they're like, this isn't the quote, but they're like, you lied to us. And he's like, I gave you a vision of what it would one day become. It's like, I love that. That's sales. But
Yeah.
one of the quotes that I love from there is, and I think I think it might be like an old Indian saying, but he said, in the end, it will all be okay. And if it is not yet okay, it is not yet the end.
Yeah, I like that.
And I just like coming back to that. It's sometimes I find myself in overwhelm or anxiety, or I find myself discouraged, or I find myself like, man, there's so many things I want to build and do, and just the pieces aren't coming together. And it's that thing of, you know what, it's going to be okay in the end. If it's not okay yet, the game's not over. You're still above ground. You still got some
Yeah.
fight. So that's one of the ones that
And I
I'll
think it's easy. I mean, if you've been around long enough, then you can look back at situations in your life and go, look back to, well, I could look back to my 20s or my 30s or my 40s even,
yeah.
and look back to situations that were challenging, whether they were career challenges, relationship challenges, whatever.
Mhm.
You can look back, and from the perspective of looking back,
Mhm.
hindsight,
Mhm.
often you can see that you can see what the silver lining is, and the reason why. I believe in that things happen for a reason, the
Yeah.
reason why things happen. And it's a lot easier to then be able to go, oh, I can see now, if I hadn't have this merger didn't take place and I didn't get
Yeah.
made, lose that
Yep.
job, I wouldn't have then moved into this company, and I wouldn't
Mhm.
have met that person. So you
Mhm.
can look back and see the benefits and the good reasons for
Yeah.
why at the time you might think bad things are happening.
Yeah.
And it's all about the story we tell ourselves. So we
Yeah.
have control over everything.
Yeah.
When bad things happen, whether it's a
Yeah.
rejection of a sale, we didn't win the business, we've been working
Yeah.
on it for months and it all fell over, we didn't get it at the end. As salespeople, we can, and business owners,
Yeah.
we can really beat ourselves up because we
Yeah.
failed. But really,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like being able to step back and look
Mhm.
at the positive. Like, what did we learn from that?
Mhm.
We put a tender in, and I don't know, we were late putting the tender in, or maybe we didn't quote right, or whatever.
Yeah.
What can we learn from the experience and take the good from that
Yeah.
experience, the learnings, so that we don't
Yeah.
make that mistake again, so that we can improve the next time we're in front of a customer and
Yeah.
have a better outcome,
Yeah.
because we've learned from it. But
Yeah.
it's very hard for people, salespeople and business owners, when you're in it, when you're
Yeah.
absolutely right there under the
Yeah.
umbrella of what's happening right now,
Yeah.
and it feels bad. And
Mhm.
being able, and it's hard to, you've got to shift that energy.
Mhm.
And I think we should allow ourselves a little time to, I remember going to grieve, to sort of go, oh, well, there's a loss here, we missed out. But I think you've got to quickly, maybe that's that
Yeah.
5 seconds, that we change it into, okay, what can we learn from this? And you've got to
Yeah.
shift that energy and shift that thinking. And being successful in sales and business is
Yeah.
being able to quickly shift your thinking.
Mhm.
Because if you stay in that negative thought, those negative thoughts and those negative beliefs, it's going to mean you're going to have negative emotions, which means your actions are going to be, well, less than great. They're going to be poor, or maybe
Yeah.
non-existent, curl up in the fetal
Mhm.
position and cry for the next week. So you're not going to take action. And if you don't
Yeah.
take action, you're not going to get the results. So I
Yeah.
think to be successful as entrepreneurs and business owners and salespeople, we need to be able to shift out of that negative when bad things happen,
Yeah.
shift out quickly, allow yourself to be upset for a bit, but then move on.
Yeah.
And then as you look back, you can then say, right, okay, now what can we learn so that we can
Mhm.
improve moving forward? And that's the way we improve and keep improving our skills and grow our business.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's the game, man. Yeah, being able to reset quickly
Yeah.
and get it. And so I'm curious, as we kind of land our plane here, I'm always fascinated, like, if you take a burnt out business owner or just a business owner that's in it, they're creating, they just need some encouragement. They've got a ways to go. What's if you could leave one piece of encouragement, whether that was like, hey, to you 5 years ago or you 10 years ago, or to a business owner that's just trying to build something, what's that? If you could leave one piece of encouragement, nothing else, what would you leave any audience member that's just like, I could really use some encouragement?
Yeah, I think there's so many things that you could do. And we've
Yeah.
talked about a lot of the things as well about with overwhelm, chunking it
Yeah.
down and that sort of stuff, planning and working your plan and staying
Yeah.
focused. But I think really is surrounding yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with positive people who will
Yeah.
support you and not put you down.
Yeah.
And whether that's a mastermind group or an accountability group, you
Yeah.
need to have someone that you can talk to
Hmm.
be able to get you through those difficult times, because there will be difficult times. And so having a coach or a mentor or an accountability buddy, we cannot do this business, whatever the business you're in, you cannot do it
Yeah.
on your own. And the sooner you can outsource,
Yeah.
the better. Outsource, like, some people, I'm lucky, I have my husband works with me in the business, so he does a lot of the IT and technical stuff for me.
Yeah.
My next hire will be a VA. I'll
Yeah.
also be looking eventually of paying somebody else to do like Facebook postings
Yeah.
and editing videos. So there's different
Yeah.
jobs that I would like to outsource. But
Yeah.
when you're starting out, you've only got a certain budget. But I think being able to outsource and take some of that burden off your
Hmm.
plate,
Hmm.
surround yourself with people that can support you,
Yeah.
whether they're just someone to talk to, like a coach or a
Yeah.
mentor, or
Yeah.
someone who takes some of those jobs off you. Maybe
Hmm.
even the first, I've got a cleaner as well, so I don't have to do the housework, which is great. My husband does the IT stuff, he cooks me dinner, does the shopping, and I have a cleaner who does the housework. So I've unburdened myself of a lot of chores, which means that
Yeah.
then I don't have to worry about that. I can just stay focused. But I also have two coaches. I have a
Hmm.
coach for coaching, and I
Yeah.
also have a coach for my marketing that helps with my marketing. So
Yeah.
I've got two people that I can bounce ideas off, that help guide me. I'm following their strategies and implementing them. And if I get discouraged, I've also got a accountability group.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was on the call with them just before we chatted. We meet on
Yeah.
a Friday morning, half an hour, quick check-in, how we're going. What did we say we were going to do for the week? Action steps. Did we do it? What got in the way? Very quick, just four of us in a group, and it's really quick. And then we get on with our
Yeah.
day. So I think surround yourself,
Mm.
with people that can support you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be
I
the
love that. Yeah.
biggest
That is
tip.
so true. That is team, friends, support group, mentors, coaches. Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, as people are listening and they're like, I gotta get more of Katherine in my life. And I will put all of your links, websites, Instagram, all your handles and links. I'll put that all in the show notes. But just so people can hear, where would you say, hey, if someone's like, I really want to listen and get more of what you got, where would you point them to next, maybe their next couple steps with you?
Yeah, well, anyone can follow me on social media. So
Okay.
Minett Sales Academy, Facebook, Instagram, and Katherine Minett on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You can follow me on any of those social channels if that's quick and easy for people. But what I would like to offer your listeners today, one of the things I often get asked about with selling is how to handle objections,
Mm.
sales objections. That's a big one, a big
It's
fear.
huge.
And it takes preparation, and
Hmm.
you need to know what sort of objections are going to come up. So I've got
Yeah.
a PDF. It's called How to Handle the Top 5 Sales Objections, and it's a simple 5-step process. So I can give you the link for that so that your listeners can download the PDF.
Yes. Okay.
And that gives them just something, one little tool that they can
Yeah.
then look at and hopefully give them confidence and be prepared for any sales objections that they will get, because they're just inevitable. And
Yeah.
also, if anyone wants more, wants to connect with me in I've got a private Facebook group.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
for business owners, for business owners and entrepreneurs that really they need to go out and do face-to-face sales, and they need to make consistent sales in order to scale their business. I provide ongoing, all my trainings go in there. I do free trainings, events, and I always try and get recordings and put them in there. So I get lots of free training, but it's in my private Facebook group.
Oh, wow.
So the link, it's the sales confidence for entrepreneurs. So I'll give you that link as well for my private Facebook group, and then come and join. And I always say, introduce yourself and let me know. And if you do join the group and it's because you've been listening to Matthew's podcast, let me know in the group that you heard about me in Matthew's podcast, and I can let Matthew know how many of his listeners have benefited from today's podcast. And I will continue to provide more training and education for free in my private Facebook group.
Come on, community service. I love it. Well, Katherine, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so fun to all the streams we went down of sales and stories of just even back from childhood, like how we became who we became. So thank you so much for joining.
It's my absolute pleasure, Matthew. I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you. I love talking. I'm a salesperson. What can I say? I've been doing it all my life. And I'm sure, and I hope that your listeners have got a lot of value, even if they just take away one little thing from today's conversation and they go run with that one thing, that can make a big difference. So choose one thing from today and do it. What did I say? It was just
get started. Just do it. Just get started.
Thank you, Matthew.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. That's another episode of The Good Life. Please join us in next week for another episode, and we'll see y'all soon.